These are oh my poor old iPad. She's almost at the end. Shocker, I get stuck.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know you know to do. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight? A long man who brings a job a fresh new point of view. Well, it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. And do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president no matter what his creed? It's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair? Who measure him against the others, and when you compare, you cast your vote for Kennedy and the change that's over too. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you.
Welcome, welcome, welcome from my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. In these United States, Daisy's so excited that she can't stop barking. That's how exciting this particular episode of the program is going to be from our humble second bedroom in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, part of these United States, North American continent, Western hemisphere on this planet Earth, the only one we have. Third off from the sun in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the Kennedy Effect, live with you for the 3rd of March, 2024. Big week. We want to welcome quite a number of new groups on Facebook who have allowed me to be part of their program, of their corner of the Facebook universe. 5 new internet radio based groups around promotion and kind of a community, if you will, of online radio hosts and promotions, and an Ohio based internet radio group. To all of the new groups who have allowed us to be part of their corner of the Facebook universe, we say thank you, thank you, thank you. And it is not taken lightly by me or anyone associated with the program that we are thrilled that you would allow us to be part of your corner of the Facebook universe. Let me share with you, if I may, how many shares we got out before we got stopped. What a surprise. Now, the weekly thing, 98, and I wasn't done yet. 98, and I was not done. What a surprise, by the way, that we were stopped along the way. This is becoming a weekly thing now, that pretty much, you know, when I do my sharing at the beginning of the program, something's going to go wrong. There's going to be a block in there somewhere. We're going to get stopped somewhere along the way. And boy, that seems to be a constant. It is just, it just won't stop. And the strange thing, and I'm not, you know, I don't mean to get so deep into the weeds about it, because it's annoying and it's pedantic sort of stuff. And if you don't do this, and if you don't do what I do, and if you're, then it becomes, it's really pedantic stuff. Let's just put it that way. It's boring, pedantic stuff. But it does seem that each week now, we get stopped somewhere along the way, that we get blocked in certain countries. That one I still find very entertaining, by the way. Really, really entertaining that we were blocked last week in Russia and Belarus. I just thought that was hilarious. And I've still not received any kind of explanation for that other than the obvious. I mean, let's, do I think Mr. Putin is making sending a directive from the Kremlin saying block that guy? No, I don't. But the coincidence that the only two countries on earth that we were blocked in is those two is inescapable, and it just makes me smile. It's inescapable, and like a spoiled little boy that I am, entertained by very, very simple things. um that does make me it does make me smile. It really does. But we made it out to 98 places before we got stopped again every week now. And what I was going to say is that the really interesting thing is that last week we did all of our group sharing and did not get stopped once. We went straight out to just shy of 120 different places, never got stopped, never got blocked, none of that stuff. So now, an hour into the program, I'll have to try to remember what groups we did not make it to, and then start over again with that. It is quite the racket. um and I've told you before that I know that Facebook owns it. I get it. When you become a member of Facebook, you have to sign a you click and you sign an agreement that they own everything that happens on their platform. It's their platform. And it is. And I get it. But boy, some of us are not trying to take over the world. Some of us are not trying to scam people out of money. We don't have an uncle in Nigeria that died, and if you just send me $1,000, I'll send you 1,000,000. That's not us. And yet, boy, we must be popular, because consistently every week now we are stopped and blocked in some sort of way from sharing our content. And even when I called Facebook and offered them money, what do you want? Name a price. Tell me what you want to keep me from being blocked. They couldn't even answer me. The poor kid, and I mean kid on the other end could not tell me. Like, to give me a marketing plan, give me an advertising plan that I can purchase and buy. Nothing. Couldn't give me an explanation. Couldn't give me nothing. It's just it's mind numbing. I have to be honest with you. It's mind numbing. But that said, anyway, we're thrilled to be with you. We always are. And we're thrilled that you're here with us. We're really, 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 really honored at the new groups that have allowed me to become a member. And I do mean that, because it's their groups. It's their corner of Facebook. So they didn't have to let me in, but they did. I should try to find you the names of them quickly. That's not how you do it, by hitting that button. You're not gonna find that out, because they deserve a quick shout out if I can find them all. There's an internet radio stations, DJ positions, and technical info group, the internet radio group, internet radio promotions, online radio stations, internet radio shows. 5 brand new groups that we have become part of, and that they have allowed us to become part of them. And I do look at it that way. It's their group. They were there well before me. So they have allowed us to join them, and I'm thrilled about it. It increases our reach. No kid. I mean, no kidding. It increases the number of people that we could potentially reach in a week by another 50,000 people. Now, does that mean that those 50,000 people are all listening right now at this moment? Of course not. Nor would I expect that they would be. But what it does do is it allows us to reach them. So our reach now, which is kind of another way to judge these things, if you will, is reach. How many people can you get to? So that number of people is now increased by another 50,000 people. And that's super exciting. and we appreciate it a great, great, great deal. So let's get to the business end of the program very quickly. Wherever you are across the Facebook universe, welcome, 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 and thank you to groups, both large and small, public, private, uh, individuals, uh, local, regional, national, everybody that allows us to be part of their little corner of the Facebook universe. And I don't mean little in a bad way. I mean little because it's such a big, huge universe. 2/3 of the people on the planet are on Facebook. We appreciate it very, 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 very much. We could not be here if you are not there. We are live right now on my own personal Facebook page, Jeff Kennedy, and our home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information. We are also live right now as we speak on our YouTube channel, which is also called That Other Side of Information. Watch wherever you wish. To all the groups and individuals that allow us to be part of their Facebook experience, stay right there. Watch, enjoy. The only reason I ever ask any of you to come over to my Facebook is not for marketing or for money or for anything, but because if you ask a question, I won't see it. And I don't want you to think that I am skipping you or missing you or ignoring you or dodging your question or anything like that, especially if it's a question where you simply do not agree with anything that I'm saying and you want to challenge it. And perhaps even more, if you're writing or commenting to correct me on something that I'm saying, if you think I need to be corrected, you think I got something wrong and you want to look it up, you want to do a DuckDuckGo search real quick, look it up and correct me, then I want to see it. I don't want to miss it. So it's my personal Facebook, Jeff Kennedy, where I will see your comments and questions. Come on over and watch. Be an interactive, live, literal part of the program in real time. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. We continue to be extremely proud to be part of the Hot101.net family around the globe. Hot101.net, our name is our web address, but you don't need the web address to listen. You can use our apps. Apple App Store for Apple devices, Google Play Store for Android, and the Tune In radio app. Go up to the search bar, type in hot101.net. Will find us straight away and you can start listening. And I have said to you before many, many times, the great things about the hot101.net app is no registration, no money, no credit card, no password, no fingerprints, no DNA sample, don't have to give up your firstborn, give away the college fund, deed to your house, none of that stuff. You download the app for free, you tap it, and it opens, and you're listening. Easy. Super, super simple. No new passwords to memorize, no credit card imprint to share, none of that stuff. You tap it, it opens, and you're listening. Hot101.net around the globe, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We never take a break. It's always going, and you should be listening. Hot101.net. And don't forget that you can tell Alexa to play Hot101.net, and she will immediately. And I hope that I triggered somebody's Alexa because I'm an infantile little boy, and I think it's funny and it makes me laugh. So if I do ever trigger your Alexa, please tell me, because I will giggle at it, because I'll be very, very proud of myself in really silly, immature ways, and it will make me laugh. We are also part of the TCP Media Group and very proud to be part of that. TCP may no longer be live on weekday mornings, which is a real shame. I miss it terribly, but it is still a very important, very active, meaningful, substantive part of the community, and you should be checking them out online as well. 50,000 plus people follow them on Facebook. They are based right out of Lancaster County here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That is the TCP Media Group, and of course our sponsor, the Tune In. I almost said the Tune In Radio app. Wow, how did I get that? Our sponsor. Well, if they were sponsoring, I'd be pretty darn happy. Our loan sponsor, of course, is the PayGive app, www.paygive.org, a financial transaction app. You can tell PayGive to take a portion of your financial transaction and dedicate it to a charity of your choice. There are animal charities, which I happen to be particularly fond of, children's charities, health-related charities, veterans, and so on and so on and so on. The PayGive app, paygive.org. When you buy things, you have to pay for them. Why not give while you do it? The PayGive app. So, did anything happen this past week? Anything? Anybody? Raise your hands. Feel free. Look, it was a busy week in the world of everything, really. Some of the absurd, some of the powerfully serious, politics, science, finance, war, and peace. It has been a particularly busy week. I suppose the most important place to start, the best place to start, is probably State of the Union. Well, no, let me back up because let's do it a little bit chronologically. Super Tuesday is something that we can talk about that will not take very long to discuss because there isn't much to say about it. Super Tuesday happened. It was a particular non-event. What I would say about the Republican presidential nominating process is that I cannot remember off the top of my head in my lifetime where the party out of the White House, their nominating process was so uneventful and such a foregone conclusion so early. Pretty much from Iowa and New Hampshire, you knew exactly where the Republican nominating process was going to go. The nominee was going to be Mr. Trump, period, end of story. If any surprises were going to take place, it was going to take place in either Iowa or New Hampshire, and of course it didn't. While Mrs. Haley took an awful long time to find her voice, she did eventually find her voice, but by that point it was entirely too late. After a dozen Republicans trying to challenge Mr. Trump for the nomination, trying to make the case that they were a better choice, at the same time kissing his ass the entire time, should we be surprised that this was the outcome? And it took Mrs. Haley an awful long time to figure out that, wait, I'm running against him. Maybe I should actually run against him. But the Republican nominating process ended up being a foregone conclusion. Pretty much from Iowa and New Hampshire. And Super Tuesday basically just ended that. And that if there were, by some wild stretch, any miracles to happen, it would have happened before Tuesday or on Tuesday. It did not. And Mrs. Haley dropped out on Wednesday. I am very ever so slightly heartened that she did not endorse him. That doesn't bother me at all. Even with that said, though, she did not really do enough to continue to differentiate herself. Mrs. Haley's campaign as such was really an exercise in contradictions. That here she was running against Trump, trying to make the case that she was a better choice than he, yet never really taking him on, drawing differences, attacking his record, attacking his criminal record. She tried to play nice. Trump doesn't know how to play nice, never has, never will. It's part of his brand. It's part of his style, is to full out slit your throat if you dare question anything about him, from his suit tie to his actual policy. So much as there is policy, there really isn't much. And it took her a very long time to do that. And when she did, she was quite effective at it and actually began to build some momentum by actually running a campaign. One of the really sad outcomes, if you will, I guess outcomes probably the right word, results of the Citizens United decision is that it has become profitable to run for office. Citizens United cleared the way for candidates to keep their campaign cash and stick it in their pocket after their campaigns are over. You can run for something, just absolutely get your ass handed to you, 2-3% in the polls. But if you can raise 10, 20, $30 million, even if you spend a third of it, you can keep the rest, stick it in your pocket. It's become profitable to run for these offices. And I think, just like the Democratic nomination in 2020, by the way, when 24, I think it was, people decided to step up and run, it's become profitable on both sides of the aisle. You raise your profile. You, instead of maybe getting $3,000, $5,000, $7,000 for a speaking fee, now you get 10, 15, 20, 30. You raise 5, 10, 30, $50 million in campaign cash. Maybe you only spend half, you keep the rest. It's become a business. It's become a marketing campaign. And that's all it really was for Trump in 16. The famous story that Nicole Wallace has told dozens of times is that she received a call from a Trump campaign operative on election night 2016 when they had been declared the winner and said, "Do you think we should write a victory speech?" And she said, "Well, yeah, you were declared the winner." And the operative said, "We never planned to win. We never thought we'd win." And they literally had not written a victory speech. Mr. Trump ran for re-election because he made money being president, just like he told us he would. And he's running for a second term to keep his ass out of jail. And so what Super Tuesday did was to end this so-called Republican nominating process, one that none of the candidates really took seriously until Mrs. Haley, and only a few months ago. So I can't think of a time in my lifetime where the party who was not in the White House had such a boring, uneventful, predetermined nominating process as Republicans just had. Mr. Trump also, of course, installed all of his people to run the Republican National Committee this week, including his own daughter-in-law as vice chair, a daughter-in-law who said that every single dollar that has come into the RNC and that will come into the RNC should be spent on Trump, his legal fees, and his campaigns. Not Senate candidates, not House candidates, not state candidates, not just him, period. That the entire focus of the Republican National Committee now should be Trump and no one else. This is the complete wholesale takeover of a former political party. It's now just a branch of the corporation. That's it. It's just another branch of the Trump brand. I know there's been a lot of cute, silly monikers are out there about Trump publicans and this and that and the other thing. It's the Trump party now. We should probably stop calling it Republicans. I've been telling you on the program for years, I don't think they're a functioning political party any longer, and have not been for a very long time. I don't think really since probably George W. Bush, when really the party of no began to settle in. Tax cuts, anything corporations want, and no is what came out of George W. Bush's 8 years. But now it's just no and money for Trump. That's it. And this nominating process really showed that. And his solidification of his takeover of the national committee now shows he runs the show, period. You can't be a candidate for them without his approval. Your campaign style and substance now has to go past him, because if you say something he doesn't like, he'll savagely attack you. And his party this past week, officially on the record in public, in interviews, became the party of America sucks. He became the America sucks party. To just add onto the list of other wonderful things he said about our country previously. Soldiers are suckers. I love the uneducated. This week it was America sucks. Seriously. Can you imagine? I am absolutely parched today. You're going to watch me drink a lot on the air today. I'm so sorry. It's just water. It's actually water with a little bit of soda. So it's not as fuzzy and it's not as sweet. It's water, but it's, my goodness, am I parched. But that's what we're dealing with. So there was that this week. That was pretty much the week in Republicanism. We'll move on through the week after our 6:30 reset. It's already 6:30 p.m. My goodness gracious, it's already 6:30. We're half hour into the program. This is the Kennedy Effect, and we are live with you for the 10th of March, 2024. Pretty much a return to winter this weekend here in the Lehigh Valley. It was miserable yesterday. Low 40s, rain, just brutal. I mean, really ugly, and heavy rain, which was then followed by what we are essentially having now, which is a bit of a wind storm. I think the air temp is in the low 40s, but the wind chill is in the low 30s, upper 20s. We had a snow flurry before, after it was 65 degrees on Friday. Was that Friday? Thursday or Friday? It was 65. So, and then it's going to go into the 70s again this week. So, you know, I've described to you the degradation of the jet stream before. Nothing's going to more be emblematic of that than this week. And again, let me tell you that it is 6:30 Eastern Daylight Time. If by some stretch of the imagination you are this deep into your day and you have not adjusted your clocks, please be assured that it is 6:31 Eastern Daylight Time, 5:31 Central, 3:31 Pacific. If you haven't changed your clocks yet, go for that so you don't screw yourself up. So you're not overly early to work tomorrow morning, unless you're somebody who's habitually late. Then maybe you want to keep your clocks that way. Wherever you might be across the Facebook universe, we've shared the program to 100 places. We have more to share to later on in the program after what is becoming the weekly Facebook block is lifted. One they don't even let me appeal or fight about anymore, or even argue or any of it. They don't even give me an opportunity anymore. They just shut me down, and that's the end of it. I don't even get a chance to fight it or explain it or anything anymore. I'm just shut down. But wherever you are across the Facebook universe, thank you, including the 5 new groups that allowed us to be part of their group, their various groups this particular week. 5 different groups, all based around internet radio. Always awesome to add 5 new groups. Those groups total up about 50,000 people that we now have the ability to reach. Not saying that those people are all listening right now, but we've added just this week another 50,000 people that we could potentially reach on a weekly basis, which is pretty cool. So we thank you for that. We are live right now on my own Facebook, Jeff Kennedy, our Facebook group, That Other Side of Information, and live on YouTube, also at That Other Side of Information. And it will always continue to be, in my belief, that the best place for you to catch us on a recorded version, or if you miss any of the live program, or it's just too long, 3 hours, a lot of time on a Sunday, a lot of time any night, really. Go to youtube.com/that other side of information. Watch us there. You can watch in smaller, in 10, 15, 20-minute segments. And throughout the week, you catch up on the 3 hours. And a lot more people are doing that. I see the numbers. A lot more people are doing that. So we appreciate you all doing that as well. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. If you can connect to the internet anywhere on, above, or below Earth with any type of device, desktop, laptop, tablet, phone, you can Bluetooth to earbuds, headphones, speakers in the car. If you can connect to the internet, you can listen to hot101.net, and gosh darn it, you should be doing exactly that. Hot101.net everywhere around the globe, 24/7. Our name is our web address. Apple App Store, Google Play Store for Android, and the TuneIn Radio app. And of course, you can tell Alexa to play hot101.net. The TCP Media Group from Lancaster, PA, and our sponsor is the PayGive app, paygive.org. When you buy things, you have to pay for them. Why not give while you do it? So on Thursday, we had a very busy Thursday night. I did not watch all of the State of the Union address live. I watched about the first 15 minutes. I listened to a bit more after that while I laid in bed. I don't particularly recall it being so late each year. I don't know if the move to 9 p.m. was new. I don't think it was, but it felt really late. I simply could not stay up to watch. I just couldn't. So I watched what I was physically able to watch. And it's an odd sort of phrase, but I was physically able to watch, like it was physically impossible for me to sit there. It's not that. I have to get up for work. It's hard to watch a speech that goes to 10:30 at night, and then you want to watch a bit of the breakdown after it. Normally the news outlets, of your choice will have, the key moments that maybe didn't strike you as a key moment at the time that you watched it, where there's a quote or statistic or something that happened during it, where you might have been, you ran to the kitchen for some water or something like that and you missed it, or it just didn't strike you at the time. And then when you watch it back again as a clip, it does really hit you. Or perhaps, a point during the speech where, did he really say what he just said? You don't rewind it and you kind of just wait. So you want to watch a little bit of the breakdown of it. I couldn't. We were in bed. So I did not watch all of it. I have watched it subsequently, and I've watched all the breakdown since. So, gosh, I know you're all desperately sitting on the edge of your seats thinking to yourself, what did you think of it? It was an excellent, excellent campaign speech. But it was more than that. Was it a traditional State of the Union? Perhaps not. President Biden is actively running for re-election. For him to not use the occasion where tens of millions of Americans were watching to make the case why he should be reelected would be malfeasance. It'd be political suicide at best, if not just a sheer complete missing the mark. He had a captive audience of tens of millions. You better tell him why you should be reelected. Now, it was more rah-rah cheer than perhaps we're used to in a State of the Union. A midterm State of the Union is usually more about, here's what we did, here's where we are, here's what we should do. This had all of that, but the number of times that he drew a direct distinction to Trump and the Trump regime, I was told it was 13. I think it's more than that. Well, it was 13 times that he directly referred to his predecessor, which is an extremely collegial and polite term for the Trump regime. That's about the nicest way you could probably put it. But in any campaign, you must draw distinctions. You must. Where I think a lot of candidates, especially Democratic candidates, and I think voters, tend to misidentify those distinctions as negative campaigning. Well, they're not negative when they're true. And the amount of distinctions that the president drew from the Trump regime was pretty heavy. It was a hell of a campaign speech. But the cool part of it is that it had the benefit of being true. I have come to really look forward to the States of the Union speeches because I love to see this president, who is constantly, not just by the right, but by the media, buying into this ridiculous narrative that he's mentally hampered, incompetent, going senile, to say it in a much more blunt way. To see him spar with Republicans in real time as they are, even at the behest of their own speaker, who begged them to be polite and just shut up during the whole speech. Quite frankly, I don't think he begged them to do that out of politeness. I think he begged them to do that because he knew they'd lose every exchange. And they did. I just watched again before we started our program here with you, the section of the speech where he talked about the immigration border security bill, challenged Republicans. It's everything that you wanted and more. It was more money that had ever been spent on the border at any one time in history. That Senate Republicans voted for it by a majority. And very smartly, because the video of the State of the Union is universal. It is run by one particular set of people. It's called pool. They call it pool coverage. So when the camera's on the president, you can change to any channel that's covering the speech live and you will see the president. So whoever was moving the cameras around during that bit of the speech and turned to Senator Langford from Oklahoma, who was the chief Republican negotiator and sponsor of the immigration bill, as the House Republicans, the stray dogs, feral cats among the House Republicans around the chamber, were screaming obscenities, lies, and everything else at the president. Senator Langford is sitting there going, it's true. Everything he said is true. You can look at him shaking his head. You can read his lips saying, it's true. President Biden says to them, it's the strongest border security bill in the history of the country. We negotiated it with you. We supported it. The Senate voted for it. And they start heckling him. And he goes, oh, really? Well, what are you against in this bill? They cut to Langford and he's going, yeah, it's true. And of course, Senator Langford knows it's true because he negotiated the bill. He knows exactly what's in it. I've never been a big fan of the kind of kids' table sort of references to the House of Representatives. I know there are more of them than there are members of the Senate. It was set up that way by the framers. The great compromise between the small states and the big states, the North and the South, that one chamber would be based on population, another would be evenly split. I've never been a big fan of the Senate is the upper chamber, and the House is somehow demeaned or lesser because it's the people's house. But you saw on Thursday night the real difference between the Senate and specifically Senate Republicans and House Republicans. Now, there's a good handful of Senate Republicans who are just as bad animals as the ones in the House, but at least they know how to keep their mouths shut. Cruz and Hawley and Rick Scott, Mike Lee, Tuberville. I mean, these people are animals. They are fascist in their tendencies. They are bought, paid for, owned by the people who have financed their campaigns. They stand for nothing other than what they are told to stand for or stand against by the people that own them. But even they at least have the decorum to shut up. Or perhaps it's the good sense to say, I'm not letting him play me in the middle of this crowd and in front of 20, 30, 40 million Americans. Meanwhile, the Marjorie Taylor Greens and Gateses of the world scream their crap out into the ether, and none of it's true. And they just yell for the sake of yelling. It's become a sport, really, since President Obama, during these speeches, to just yell out. They're looking for that one clickable viral moment that will spur fundraising. Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't scream out in the middle of the State of the Union because she genuinely disagrees with President Biden or because she thinks she has a better policy position or solution or because she's a leader of any form. She does it for clicks and for attention and for the fundraising that comes with it, so that she can put out a fundraising email after the speech is over saying, that was me yelling. I'm standing up for you. You're not standing up for anyone other than yourself. And again, in this State of the Union, again, for the fourth year running, every time they did something like that, he got the better of it. Every single time. And there were a couple times where you could see Speaker Johnson motioning with his hand, sit down, shut up. Yeah, because you're losing these exchanges, every single damn one of them. You're making fools of yourselves. But that's become part of the Republican brand, is to make a fool of yourself, is to just shout out into the ether anything that comes through your face, no matter how vile, vulgar, untrue. Let's not be polite. How many lies fly out of your face? Because that's what the people who own you are paying for. They're paying for the distraction. They're paying for the clicks and the highlights and the viral moment. I give MSNBC and CNN, among others, including NPR and others, foreign press, to not give her that kind of attention, other than to say Republicans shouted out. They didn't particularly name her to give her the extra form of attention. Everybody knew who the hell was screaming. She does it pretty much every time she's working, if you will. I mean, it is her job to be a representative. During committee meetings, she screams, she interrupts other people, belittles other people. She's become Chicken Little. We don't listen to her anymore. She just sits in the corner and screams. Even Republicans don't listen to her anymore. It was an excellent. Let's talk about the actual delivery before I get to the final verdict. I'm completely dehydrated. I can't get enough to drink right now. I can't get enough water. Let's talk about the actual delivery of the speech. Much was made of President Biden's energy, or his tone, volume of speaking. Well, the volume of speaking is pretty much necessary in these modern times because he's constantly has to talk over somebody. And, to be fair, Democrats, are willing to stand up and cheer just about every other sentence, if for no other reason than for the visual of it and to make a point. I think that's the whole degradation of this event. The State of the Union is something that the framers intentionally put in the Constitution. The executive must report to the legislature at least once a year. And really, only until the 20th century was it a live speech. It used to just be a handwritten report, if you will, compiled by the executive and given to the legislative. And I think it became a habit to become a live speech during the Republican Great Depression and then into the war. And now it is a tradition to be given that the speaker formally invites the president to come address the joint session. And, some of that formality and some of that tradition, I think, is actually a really good thing. A little pomp and circumstance, a little bit of show that your government is functioning isn't a bad thing. But again, the delivery. Highly energetic? Yes. Loud? Yes. Aggressive? I wouldn't say aggressive. I would say energetic. I would say a bit even forceful. It was the speech that a man who is under constant attack for being incapacitated and too old, quote unquote, had to give. Now, let's get to the truth of it. When you watch Mr. Biden walk, it's pretty painful. I know he still rides a bike. I think he might still jog occasionally. He used to be a runner, as I recall. But he does still ride a bike. He does still exercise. He shuffles a bit when he walks, keeps his feet close to the ground to keep his balance. Not unlike most folks who are in their 80s. Does he speak a little slower than he used to when he was in his 40s? We know he's always had a stuttering problem. I have a lisp. I'm still here. Is there a little more of that kind of whisper under his voice that older folks get instead of the pure classic from the diaphragm baritone that we might be used to in our public figures? Yes. But is his mental acuity impaired? I think he put that to rest on Thursday night. You may not agree with the policies that this president has passed, has enacted, has stood up for, continues to stand up for, policy solutions for current and upcoming events / crises that may come across. You may not agree with him for any of it. And that's a debate that we can and should be having in this country. Those are healthy, small d democratic debates that we should be having in this country. But whether this president is mentally up to the job is now and should no longer be from Thursday on, should be a topic. Because clearly he is. And it's exactly why Speaker Johnson wanted his people to shut up. Because when you spar with Joe Biden live in real time, you lose. So somebody who is that mentally incapacitated doesn't win those kind of arguments, doesn't win those kind of impromptu engagements. He wins every one of them every single time. In the same way that he shamed Republicans into a quote unquote policy agreement, if you will, that Social Security not only needed to be protected, but expanded. He did it to them again with the border. You all voted against a bill that you wrote, the strongest bill of its kind in the history of the country. And with the Republican senatorial co-sponsor sitting there going, yep, that's true. He's right. Meanwhile, the feral cats and wild animals of the House Republican caucus screaming lies and attacks and everything else. So his delivery of the speech, his engagement with those Republicans on every one of those impromptu engagements, he won all of them. The idea that he is not fit for office is past now. That's done. Unless there is an upcoming health crisis that none of us can see into the future to foresee, a fall, I shouldn't even speculate, but if he should happen to get COVID again, because I think he did have it once, something like that we can't look into the future and see. As of now, as of the end of that speech Thursday, this discussion about his mental acuity is done. Yes, he is fit for office. 100%. 100%. Let's remember, Republicans, St. Ronald Reagan served into his 80s. I believe he was 78 when he was elected to his second term, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody's welcome to correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure he was 78 when he was elected to his second term. But somehow that's okay because it was Reagan. And you just don't like Joe Biden. Too damn bad if you don't like him. The truth is he's more than capable of the job, period. You may not like what he does in the job, and that's cool. Let's talk about that. Let's have those uniquely American debates. But he's up to the job, and he schooled you all again, and again, and again, and again. Every time one of those animals shouted out just to make themselves get clicks, they lost every time. That's not a man who's incapacitated. So his delivery was spot on. It was exactly what was needed. Whatever preparations, practice sessions, read throughs of that speech that took place, well, somebody should put that in a book. How to prepare for dummies and publish it, because it was fantastic. It just was. And again, let me be fair to my friends on the right. You may not have agreed with anything that President Biden said in that speech. The fact is, he schooled you all the way through it. And he made the wild animals that inhabit the House Republican, quote unquote, majority, all 2 seats of it. He beat you all again, over and over and over. Speech was exactly what the president needed, was exactly what the Democratic Party needed, was exactly what the campaign needed. The general election campaign needs an incumbent who is up for the fight, and an incumbent who is going to stay as energetic and, dare I say, aggressive and on the front foot, as we say in soccer, who's going to stay as much on the front foot as the Republican nominee is going to be lying to everyone. The Joe Biden that spoke Saturday night during the State of the Union has to be the Joe Biden that carries all the way through to November. And it has to be the Joe Biden that goes out into the country every time Trump lies and sets the record straight, and does it with a forcefulness and an energy, and also at the same time a compassion and a complete grasp of the knowledge of the issues. All of it was there Thursday, all of it. But now it's got to carry forward. 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. If by some stretch of the imagination you have not changed your clocks yet, have a look at it. If you're just tuning in because you think we just started, you missed a whole hour. Where the heck were you? You missed a whole hour. It is 7:01 Eastern Daylight Time. Daylight savings has returned. Too bad the spring temperatures are not here with it, or at least not here in the Northeast, but daylight savings time has returned. We're so glad that you are here. We're so fortunate. We're so very, very grateful that you all are here, and we appreciate you being here very, very, very much. 7:01 Eastern Daylight Time, and this is the Kennedy Effect for the 10th of March, 2024. Wherever you might be across Facebook, I might actually be able to finish my sharing now from the groups that I was blocked out from before. We've shared already over to 100 different places. Randall put another 10 on top of that. So we're already at the 110-ish mark. I have more to do. Block should be lifted now. We thank you very, very much. I know that I say it every single week, and I say it at the reset of the program, usually at every top and bottom of every hour, but we mean it. I have to keep saying it because I mean it, because we survive on your kindness. If you have a Facebook page, a group, both large and small, local, regional, national, and you allow us to be part of that, that's what we live on. That's how we survive. That's how the program continues to grow and word of it continues to be spread. And we are immensely grateful to every single one of you that allows us to do that. We're deeply, deeply appreciative of it. We hope you'll continue to do so. If you would like to engage in a conversation, and I have to say, the chat is exceptionally quiet. Like, it's brutally quiet. If you have comments, questions, you want to argue with me, you want to debate me, you want to agree with me, maybe even, come on over to my Facebook page, Jeff Kennedy. Also, we are live at our home group Facebook page for the program, That Other Side of Information. It's my Facebook where I will see your comments and questions. Name's right on the screen, Jeff Kennedy. Phone number's on the screen. We'll get to that in a minute. Come on over, be part of the program. And I should just say, I think quickly, even though we're in this reset, this would be the third straight week that I've just carried the program by myself primarily. George, you see, is in and here. He's fighting a cold, by the way, still, and he's here. Actually, bronchitis it was, I think, if I recall. If I'm not giving you if I'm not giving away too much of George's private health business here, but it's always a better program when George is here. I always feel better. He is a bit of a security blanket, which is an odd way to put it, but it is. I always feel much more confident and comfortable and at ease when George is here than compared to when he is not. So I'm thrilled that he is here. That said, we depend on you. So thank you for being there with us. Thank you for coming on over. I've given you my I remember where I was going now. I think I had a little COVID moment there, a little COVID brain moment there. Wow. And you got to watch it live. I've talked to you about my policy on guests now. Over the weekend, I think I invited yet another half a dozen folks to come on the program. I haven't heard from many of them quite yet. So I'm not going to beg people to be guests on the program. You and I will have a chat each week. And when guests are scheduled, when they finally agree to come, then we'll have guests on the program. And it'll be great when we do. And when we don't, it'll be us. We'll have a chat together. Kennedy Effect family. Nice and simple. So this is our third week, I think, on the trot might even be fourth, without a guest. So it's just us. Come on over to my Facebook, Jeff Kennedy, it's right on the screen there. Name's right there on the box. Find me, come here. You can ask questions, drop your comments, agree with me, disagree with me, tell me you don't like my shirt. I don't laugh because you can hear Daisy barking in the background. I don't know what she's on about, but she's been barking a bit. And actually, at the very beginning of the program, if you heard an odd sort of toy squeak, it was Daisy playing with her favorite toy. She really knows how to squeak that thing. It's pretty funny. But that said, come on over. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. If you can connect to the internet anywhere on, above, or below Earth in any manner whatsoever, with any type of device whatsoever, you can listen to Hot101.net, Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and the TuneIn Radio app. Again, the great things about the 101 apps. Tap on it. You download it for free. Tap on it. It opens. You're listening, period. No retina scan. No blood sample, no credit card. You don't have to hand over your firstborn. Don't have to sign over the deed to the car or the house. No credit card imprint. None of that stuff. You tap it, it opens, you listen. Hot101.net, everywhere on, above, or below Earth, all around the globe. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The music never stops. The talk doesn't stop. And remember, right after us at 9 p.m., Eastern Daylight Time, 9 p.m. on 101, and that other side of information. The Villain's View comes up with you today live at 9 p.m. The TCP Media Group from Lancaster, PA. We continue to be proud to be part of the TCP family. And of course, our lone sponsor, corporate support, if you will, the PayGive app, a financial transaction app. You can designate a percentage of your transaction. This is where the financial transaction apps make all their money, right? Or banking apps, if you will. The PayPals of the world, they make their money by taking a piece of, they charge you a fee for every transaction, right? They charge you for the convenience. Venmo, pay, I don't even know, I can't even name them all, but you know what I'm talking about. PayGive is one of them. What's different about PayGive is that you can tell them to take a percentage of that money that they're charging you and designate it to a charity of your choice. It could be animal-based charities, which would please give you my first vote, would be an animal-based charity. Give you veterans charities, health-related charities, and on and on and on. And I hope that you will download their app and choose to use them. Paygive.org, www.paygive.org in the Paygive app. When you buy things, you have to pay for them. Why not give while you do it? And I want to welcome George and say hello to you, sir. And I hope you are feeling okay. George and I had a bit of a production meeting on Saturday morning. He sounded good, but I know that he's still fighting a bit of an illness. So I'm very, very thrilled that you're here, sir. Thank you very, very much for being here. It is always, always, always a better show when George is in the house, so to speak. So welcome, sir. Might be away from the computer.
I'm not away from my computer. I just keep coughing all the time. Sorry. I can hear everything you say.
This beautiful little thing, and then there's like silence. And
I can hear.
Stepped away. He stepped away.
I'm like Katie Britt. I can hear everything. I hear everything you say.
Yeah, well, you came just in time too, because we did not get to the rebuttal of the State of the Union yet, although I do intend to talk about it. We do want to get into the quote unquote rebuttal of that, if you will. That was something. Randall reminds us that every time zone in the USA has switched to daylight except Arizona. Correct. During daylight hours, there is no mountain time zone. Arizona does not change its times like the rest of the country. They are in permanent daylight savings time, if you will. They don't change. They do not fall back. They simply kind of become their own time zone, the mountain time zone. The mountain time zone goes away during daylight time. There's only Eastern, Central, and Pacific. And I say Pacific very slowly so that it doesn't come out like it did when I was a kid. Specific. There's a difference between Pacific and specific time. Am I missing anything else in here? Quick hello to Phyllis and to my cousin Dawn. Pam Nicholson is watching, which is awesome. I don't think I recognize Pam. I think you might be new to the program. Thank you for being here. Means a lot to us. Normally I type all this in, but because I don't have a guest, I have to pay a little more attention. So I'm saying it out loud. So welcome to Dawn, to Randall, to Phyllis, to Lewis, to Pam, and Patricia. Yay, Patricia. And to Carmina, to everybody who's in watching the program tonight. Thank you. Remember, please, if you ever miss any of our program, you can catch up with us everywhere that we share the program on Facebook. Now, you might have to scroll down to find it because we move further away from Sunday. It drops lower and lower and lower on the Facebook feeds. You might have to scroll to find it, but everywhere that has allowed us to share the program, you can find it there. The best place to catch up with the program if you miss any of it live, remains our YouTube channel, youtube.com/that other side of information. youtube.com/that other side of information. And by God, I always implore you, I ask a lot of you as an audience, to be perfectly honest. I do. I ask you to send your questions and comments. I beg you to be engaged in real time live with us during the program. The other kind of social media only thing I have to always ask you is likes and subscribes and follows and all of that stuff. It just helps the program. If you find us on Facebook, give us a like. If you want to be a part of the group, come on over and join the group. If you like what you see, give us a like, drop in a comment, give us a question. If you go to YouTube to watch the program during the week, and by the way, when you do that, you don't have to pay anything for any of that. It's just there. You can open it up and watch, but we ask that you give us a like and a subscribe along the way and become a follower of us on YouTube. If you are what was I going to say? A TikTok person, do that. Please come on over, give us a like and subscribe. I think it's a follow on TikTok. I think it's the term they use. Please do that. It just helps. I kind of wish it didn't have to be that way. It seems like a lot to ask. And Mark is in the building as well. Hello, Mark. We've missed you, my friend. It's good to see that you're tuning in. We're grateful to you. In this social media world, likes and follows and subscribes, it's a big deal. And subscribe somehow has become, I think, to make people think that they have to pay me something. No, if you want to be a subscriber to our YouTube channel, it does not cost you anything, nothing. It just means, from a YouTube point of view, it means that whenever we go live for any reason, whether we're doing a program or if George and I are up at 2:30 in the morning testing equipment, or whatever that might be, you will get an alert to be told that we're on. And you might get reminders that you didn't watch, or that maybe you started watching and you can resume watching with a tap. Very, very simple things. So in this social media world, it's likes and follows and subscribes. And yes, I'm asking you to do all of those things. Give us likes on Facebook, Instagram. What do you give on Instagram? I think those are likes as well. LinkedIn. Come look for me on these social media platforms. Let's connect. We're on all of them. Well, we're not on all of them. We're on the big ones. We're on the most recognizable ones. We're not on, Mastodon and all these some of the others. We're not on MySpace. I can say that. We're at least older. We're at least advanced enough, George and I, that we're not on MySpace anymore. But we're Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, the biggies. You can find us on the biggies. So find us, give us a like, give us a follow, give us a subscribe, whatever's appropriate for that particular form of social media. It is a lifeblood for us. It is an energy source, so to speak, for us, for what we do. So please do that. And again, you get alerts and stuff. If I post on Instagram and you're a follower there, you'll see it, or you'll get a note. Do you want to check this out? Look what just happened. If you're a subscriber on YouTube, you will get a note. Hey, they're live. You're missing it. Get in there. Or it'll help remind you to, when we're on, that you can watch it in a recorded. There's a new video at that other side of information. You might want to check it out. You get reminders and things like that. No money, just a like or subscribe. And I'm running out of air. I had to hit the inhaler, something awful yesterday, and I appear to be running out of air. Randall mentions that he has a 10 and 5-year-old grandson staying over, and the 10-year-old won't go to bed until 8. So he's not calling in. Well, that's fine. That's way more important, by the way. Family first, always, always, always. All right. So George mentioned. Let me just, before we get on to Senator Britt's quote unquote rebuttal of the State of the Union, let me just slide this in for a bit regarding President Biden's delivery of his speech. We're constantly bombarded with these very leading polls that 20, 30, 40, 60% of Democrats are concerned and they want a different nominee and blah, 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 blah. And believe me, it's a lot of blah, blah, blah. President Biden, at 81 years old, with these constant swirling questions around his mental capacities and his physical health, just showed Democrats for the very foreseeable future exactly how they can and should be campaigning. Loud, forceful, energetic, dare I say even aggressive. Dare I say even aggressive, with constant, quick, and automatic rebuttals to Republican lies. He taught our entire party how to campaign. It's a style of campaigning I have been talking about with every Democratic candidate who's been kind enough to want to speak with me. And I do mean it that way. It's an honor for me, for any Democratic candidate that comes to me and says, please, I want to know what you think. I always find that to be an honor. This is how we can and should be campaigning. When somebody lies to you, you call them out immediately, directly to their face, and you face them down. The truth always wins. And we do it with energy, and we do it with tone and conviction. We stiffen our spines, we stick our chests out a little bit and say, we did this. One of the greatest parts of the State of the Union was when the president talked about the infrastructure bill. He looked to the Republican side of the chamber and said, every single one of you voted against it. But I see you at all the ribbon cutting ceremonies taking credit for it. And so, of course, the animals in the group started rising up and screaming back at him. He said, okay, fine. You don't want the money in your district? I'm sure this side does. And owned them again. And that's exactly the way that my party needs to be campaigning at every single level. And it was the 81-year-old president that we're always crying and wondering about who showed us the way. It's exactly how every Democratic candidate in the country should be standing up and campaigning. Thank you for letting me get that out of my brain. Area code 484-633, your first name and where are you calling from, please? If you're still there. If you didn't hang up on me.
Hello, hello.
There he is. Go.
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me, Jeff?
I can. Your first name, where are you calling from?
This is Mark from Whitehall.
Hey, Mark.
Pretty good.
How are you, mate?
How you doing?
If you're listening on the radio in the background, turn that down. Just listen to me on the phone. The delay is going to be a nightmare. You won't be able to deal with it. It plays with your brain.
Okay, we're good. I don't have nothing playing in the background this time, but the first time I called in, I did.
It's the delay. You end up listening to the delay, and it can be up to 17 seconds, which is a heck of a lot of dead space. So it just plays with your brain a little bit. That's all. No worries. Go for it, my friend. Talk to me. Tell me questions, comments. Floor's yours.
Oh, I got a lot of them. Let's see which one pops up first in the old gray and white matter. Woo. Let's see. Oh yeah, as far as in the district, that's another thing. The Israeli, what's going on over there. In the districts, there are people that have, the weapons manufacturers. So these people are going to lose money if they stop sending these, weapons to. And if they lose money, that's not good for their bank accounts. It's profitable, as Medley Butler said, to make weapons to kill people in foreign lands.
And-
Right? Is that correct?
And President Eisenhower, what did he warn us about during his exit speech as president? The military industrial complex that wants to see the United States in a constant state of war. And if not an active, actual shooting war, but in preparation for war. The top 3 exports of the United States currently, as improved as our economy is and as strong as it has come back post-pandemic, it is still massively unequal. But that said, our top 3 exports as a nation are fossil fuel products, i.e., oil, natural gas, coal, raw materials, just general raw materials, lumber, meaning wood, scrap metal. The Chinese come to the United States and buy trillions of tons of scrap metal from us to make into other things. And of course, weaponry. We are the arsenal of the planet. Any westernized democracy, any semi-democracy, any non-aligned country, any country in fear of Russia or China comes to us for weaponry. So yes, war has become not just gosh, how do I want to say this? I know what I want to say, and I'm lacking in the right phrasing. War has not become a last resort. It has become a profitable one. And therefore, it's never your last resort, right? If you're starving, the last thing you might do is steal food to keep yourself alive. But when stealing becomes profitable, it becomes your first choice.
Right.
So war, something that should be the last resort of humanity to solve any conflict. You know, the Bible itself is replete with war. War should always be our last resort to solve any conflict. But when it becomes profitable, massively, massively profitable, it becomes your first resort. Half of the Pentagon budget goes to private corporations. It's not just spent on salaries for troops. It goes to private corporations. War and defense has become its own industry, just like Eisenhower warned us, just like Mark very, very historically accurately points out that Smedley Butler, the man who was asked to lead an insurrection against President Roosevelt and then stood up as the patriotic American that he was and reported it to the FBI and saved democracy in this country, that he himself said that war is a racket, war is a business. It's not a business to the parents who lose their soldiers, their children on the front lines. And still, by the way, less than 1% of the American public serves. And it's usually the poorest among us that serve because it's their only way out, their only hope to continue an education or learn a skill. It's become a business. Mark is 100% correct. Go ahead, sir. Keep going.
Oh yeah. So well, my wife, on my last time I was with you, it's on YouTube. I put it up on my Facebook timeline. We were talking about Reaganomics and how, you know, how it was wealth was being extracted from us. That was the way you put it. And you said, Mark, you remember back when you're old enough to remember. Well, back then I was in 1978, 79. My first jobs, reportable jobs for Social Security I was only making $2.90, $3.25 an hour. And, I really don't remember, however, my mother worked for, Western Electric, a union. So she was the constant breadwinner. My father was attempting his own he was doing his own barbering, and that was what he was going to do. His father said, get a trade, because if you go to Max or Bethlehem Steel, they'll lay you off. But he listened to his dad, but then later he did work for the Bethlehem Steel. But anyway, where was I going with this? But my wife's grandfather was killed in World War two. Normandy. She died in Brest, France, and he was drafted 6 months later. He died on September 12th, was it, of 1944, right? 44. Yeah. So, but in that last in that video with you or whatever it was that we kept, I put in I said, I didn't, I was afraid to get married because I was making so little money that how can I afford, to even have a family? But now that I'm 60, we got married, 2 years ago, year and a half ago, I finally did it, so, and I have a family that all believes in the same stuff about Reaganomics, which it destroyed us, really. We all three of us believe that, right? And I'm also adopting, yeah. So,
Oh, awesome.
right. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, that's
Thank you.
fantastic. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
and we love dogs. I never really, we have a dog here like you have Daisy, right?
Yeah, I have little doubt. I don't want to skip over what you said about Reaganomics. We can continue to talk about that, but we don't allow Daisy to come upstairs. She stays on the main floor. The entire upstairs is carpeted, and especially once we first got her, we were told she was housebroken, but we weren't 100% sure how true that was or how complete that was. And knock on wood, she has never. I'm not even going to say the rest of that out loud and jinx it, because I probably would, but you know what I mean. She's never. But I have no doubt that if I allowed her to come up here, that she would, and put her face quite prominently on this camera, because she sits with Kristen on meetings occasionally.
Right.
Not all the time, but sometimes. But there's so many wires up here right now that I also am pretty darn sure that she would touch something and shut the power down or something. So I can't quite take that risk. But yes, if you were with us from the very onset of the program, right at 6:05, 6:10,
right,
you probably heard some barking and a lot of squeaking. Daisy had an awful lot to say. I have no idea who she was saying it to, but she had a lot to say. And then Kristen, in her infinite capacity to be patient, probably gave her her favorite toy, and then we heard, to try to distract her and quiet her down, and then we heard a lot of squeaking. Let me get back to trickle down and Reaganomics, which you bring up very, very. There's never a bad time to talk about Reagan. It all started with Reagan, right? It all started with Reagan. It will be on my gravestone if I even care enough to have one. It will be right there. It'll my name and my dates, and it all started with Reagan. Let's remember that during the State of the Union, President Biden very specifically said, again, he has said this before, and in my opinion, he's done infinitely more in this particular vein of policy, but has not fully succeeded yet. He's done more than any of the previous two-term Democratic presidents since Reagan, but he, by his own admission, has not finished the job. He specifically said during the State of the Union that it was time to end Reaganomics. In fact, I think he used the term trickle-down economics rather than Reaganomics. Same difference. That you massively cut taxes on rich people and corporations, and that when they get rich, they will share that wealth with everyone else. Well, in the history of human civilization, that has never worked. Ever. It doesn't work. There have been singular magnanimous rich people in the past who have shared their wealth, but across an entire society? No, it has not. Remember, the top marginal tax rate in the United States when Reagan came to power was 74%. That means even during the Ford and Nixon administrations, that top marginal tax rate was 74%. I had a gentleman online earlier this week. They all do this to me when they want to make a point or when they think they're making a point. Well, it was Kennedy that cut taxes. Yes, he did. He cut the top marginal tax rate from 91% to 74%. It was one of the very first things the Kennedy administration did in 1961. By late 1962 and into 63, President Kennedy was beginning to say within his own administration, because Bobby talked about this after President Kennedy was assassinated, and was beginning to say publicly that was a mistake, and that tax cut had to be reversed, and that the rates should go back to where they were. And then he was assassinated. Remember some of the big things that we've talked about on this program. And I'm not going to turn the program into a Kennedy assassination conspiracy theory program, but
Right.
There were three big things. He was going to restore those original tax rates. He was going to dismantle, not reform, dismantle the CIA. And he was going to pull all Americans out of Southeast Asia. And he was assassinated before he could do any of it. So what did the Reagan administration do? With way too much damn help, by the way, from Democrats in the House and in Congress when Reagan was in power. To make up his own, Reagan's own people then came back to him and said, we cut too much. We're out of money. We can't run the government. So where did they go for the money? They went to the poor, the middle class, and the retirees. Did they raise taxes on rich people? Nope. Did they raise taxes on corporations? No. They began taxing Social Security benefits and raised taxes on poor people and raised taxes on the middle class, while the rich continued to enjoy their flood of untaxable money. Reagan didn't just cut income taxes either. He cut the corporate tax rate. He cut the capital gains tax rate. What is the capital gains rate? The capital gains rate is the amount of money the tax money that you pay on stock transactions. I buy a stock for $5, I sell it for 10, I pay taxes on that profit. He cut those massively. They were about 35%. He cut them to 15%. The corporate tax rate was in the 50% range. He cut that to 25%. Reagan piled more debt on the United States government than all the administrations before him put together. And President Biden said specifically in State of the Union, it's time to end this. Corporations and rich people must pay, period. That's New Deal talk. That's progressive talk. That's great society talk. So can we stop with this complete BS about how the man is incapacitated and can't handle the jobs of the office? He's the only damn one since 1981 that I've heard say this has to stop. Not change, not massage around the edges, but end. The man wants to restore the New Deal, and I'm 100% with him. It has to be done. 3 people in this country have as much wealth as the bottom 160 million. 8 people globally have as much wealth as the bottom 4 billion. 680 people globally own 90% of the Earth's wealth. It is unsustainable. One of the great, I talked a little bit earlier when Mark first was kind enough to call in, and he's been kind enough to stay patient and listen to me ramble about the really excellent points that he's bringing up. One of the worst exports that ever came out of this country was trickle-down economics. We spread it all over the globe. A lot of countries have reversed it. But when 680 people have 90% of the planet's wealth, that's trickle-down economics. And it has to stop. It has to be completely reversed. We have to go completely in the other direction. It's simply unsustainable. It's an autocracy. That 680 people are running the planet. They're making all the big decisions. And the other 8 billion of us are along for the ride. That's not how it works. There's nothing big D or small d democratic about that. And it has to end. And the president said it. And it's yet another reason why he needs to be reelected. He deserves the opportunity to end it. And I hope he does. And what's funny is in democratic politics, and even the most progressive among us, even Senator Sanders has only ever talked about raising the top marginal tax rate to 50%, not back up to 91. I'd go right for 91 myself. We've done it in the history of this planet. We can do it again in this country, and we can do it again. But even Senator Sanders has only talked about 50. We know what to do. This is the thing about history. This is the wonderful, wonderful thing about history. It is a constant teacher. Its lessons do not go away. We know how to solve the massive, 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 massive economic equality that we have in this country and on this planet. We now must have the political stones to fix it. We know what the answer is. How many times do we go into new world crises? This pandemic was a relatively new crisis. We didn't exactly know what to do. We found our way through it. Next time, we'll know. But trickle-down has been with us since the Roman Empire. One of the reasons Rome fell is because the rich people didn't want to pay anymore. Let the poor people pay. Well, there wasn't enough money for the poor people to sustain the empire. The same thing is happening with the American empire. We don't want to pay for anything anymore, us rich people. You all pay for it. And you've seen the decline of the country. We know how to fix it. Massive tax cuts to rich people and corporations during the Gilded Age of the 1920s led directly to the Republican Great Depression. We know how to fix this. And the president talked about it and said it flat out. It is time to end trickle-down economics. If he said nothing else in the whole damn speech, I'd vote for him just for that. Go ahead, Mark. I'm sorry. You keep bringing up good stuff.
Okay. I'm just listening to this, and you're kind of taking me to another planet with all your with your knowledge.
I don't know if that's a good thing. Is that how do I take that? How do I process that?
My wife's cooking some good food here, so
sounds good.
there's this other thing about like say Biden's a neoconservative, then you have people like Katrina Vanden Heuvel talking, that both Biden and Trump, is for, and then you'll have the people like Professor Gary Olson. It's just these are just the same old people with Victoria Nuland. They're still running and even the Secretary of Anthony Blinken, that they're trying to build this pier over there. I'm just getting into this. The military, the budget is the largest in the world. So why can't we decrease that military budget and use that for domestic policy rather than because that's why another reason Rome fell was because the military was getting everything. It was like domination around the world with 800, 700 military bases. Like, we talk about China as the enemy, or not the enemy, but as the adversary. We're keeping pace, as Powell, the defense secretary, says. We're keeping pace with China. Well, China has this Silk Road initiative going around, and they're really picking. I want to say they're really doing a great job.
They're
China.
doing what the Peace Corps was designed to do.
Okay. Yeah.
Building roads, schools,
Yep.
power systems.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They are making friends and allies through peaceful advancement of communities and human society.
Yep.
Now, what are the Chinese getting out of it? They're getting pretty much all of the natural resources out of the African continent. Gold, diamonds, lithium, platinum. There's some petroleum, there's oil on the African continent. Not the same as the Middle East or even the United States for that matter, but there are fossil fuels there. They're getting all that. But instead of taking it at the point of a gun, they're negotiating for the rights with it by returning value, if you will, human value, to these remote villages across the African continent. They're building water systems, roads. They're delivering solar power to these villages, giving them electricity for the first time in their existence, helping them feed themselves. Yeah, they're extracting. There's no question. And they're extracting for the good of what I think we're going to soon start to refer to as the Chinese Empire, the expanding Chinese Empire. But they're doing it in a peaceful way that the Peace Corps was originally set up to do. It's what President Kennedy envisioned the Peace Corps to do. Send Americans around the globe to foster democracy and to do it at the point of a pen, not a gun or a screwdriver or a drill or a, you know what I mean, or a backhoe or something like that. Not at the point of a gun, but at the point of a pencil. So, yeah, you are so correct in what you're saying. It's spot on.
I don't know if I want to keep going and maybe give somebody else an opportunity to call in, but I'm sure I could talk a lot more about certain things. However, I'm just don't know what else to say. There's a lot more to say, but I just want to thank you very much for this great back and forth conversation. Yeah, you thought that you have a wealth of knowledge that is very very good at your specific. Yeah. Anyway, but I don't know what else I should say, but I'm probably going to just join my family here, and I just want to thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening.
You're always welcome here, and you're proving the point that it doesn't hurt a bit to call. Doesn't cost you anything, and it doesn't hurt a bit.
No, thank you very much. Thank you. I really, I just, we want to build this perfect union, and we have to just keep at it and just keep our representatives and, let them know what we think. And I've been a inconspicuous but potent political activist since 1990 when Senator Afflerbach was a Pennsylvania senator. My first activism work was in 1990 when I have all the letters up, and that's what I'm still working with Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission to be recognized as recruiting Barack Obama as their first to the term institutionalized discrimination, which was at the executive branch of government was the last bastion to be broken, and that's where he made the health care, because part of institutionalized discrimination is that there's health care for the cohort of the demographic cohort was kept away from them. And that's so I'm still working with Elizabeth Rary of the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission to get recognized for that eventually. But there's a 50-year benchmark you have to reach, which that might be holding me back, but whatever. But well, anyway,
I wish you.
I thank you.
I want to thank you for taking the leap into adoption, and for it's a bold, brave step. Congratulations to you and your wife. I look forward to hearing more about it without, you divulging private things, but you know what I mean? We would love to continue to hear about how that process is going. I think it's a very underutilized, under-publicized process in this country, that there are children who need homes and that we should be out there to try to give them those homes. Sounds to me like it's a very pro-life stance, by the way, as I stick a little elbow into the quote-unquote pro-lifers. That seems like a very pro-life stance to me to adopt. And I hope that you'll come back and tell us more about it. My best to you and your wife. Please keep listening. If you can't be here live, remember YouTube, and you are always welcome to call and take part in this program. Always, always, always.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of the night. Yeah, stay in there.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye. Yeah.
I genuinely look forward to hearing more about that. It's a program that I should he's reminded me of something that I should try to find an adoption attorney or service or something like that to talk about adoption in this country. We don't encourage adoption in this country the way that we should. There's a lot that surrounds the abortion debate, and now this IVF debate. There's a lot that surrounds the pro-choice versus the pro-life movement. If you can find it on YouTube, if I can find the link for it, I will do so. Morning Joe had one whale. Joe Scarborough went on a hell of a rant this week about the beginnings of the quote-unquote pro-life movement. I mean, it was really something to behold. He took you through the whole really the whole history of the way the Reagan campaign made abortion an issue. They created the political abortion issue, because they wanted to try to draw votes away from Jimmy Carter, who was a devout Southern Baptist and had pretty much of a stranglehold on the quote-unquote religious evangelical vote, and they needed to peel those votes away. So they quite literally created the modern abortion issue as a political issue. I mean, it was really something, and it was just this week. Gosh, I wish I could remember what. I might have found it. If I can find, I'll try to check it later. I think I might have found it, but I'll get it to George and I'll try to find it. I think he just did it on. It was Friday morning. He did it after the State of the Union, and went on this very long, detailed, and completely historically accurate description of how Jerry Falwell and Paul Weyrich. And there was a third person that he kept mentioning in there that I'm blanking on. Lewis Powell was already on the Supreme Court by that point because Nixon put him there. But there was a third person that I'm blanking out on that was part of the Reagan campaign. I'm blanking out completely. Darn it. That third person. They literally created the political issue that is the modern quote unquote pro-life movement to peel votes away from Jimmy Carter. But but I think if you're a regular listener or viewer of this program, live or recorded, I've talked so much, so much. In fact, George, I'm wondering if, I don't know how far buried back in his files it is, but the bingo card, the old bingo card, because we were going to play bingo on the program every week. We kind of forgot about that idea, I think, on a couple of weeks that George wasn't here and I couldn't find it. There's the bingo card. And it's all there. I've spent so much time in this program talking about Reaganism. And it's right there, first square, 40 years of Reaganism. The myth of trickle-down economics, the wealth doctrine. It's all there. Citizens United. It's all there. It's all there. And we had a president stand in the well of Congress in a joint session and look out over the legislative body and, by the way, the judicial body and say that this has to end, that the myth of trickle-down economics must end, not be changed, not altered, not claw back, not reestablish, end. It's over. It has to stop. Now, shame on President Clinton for not ending it. President Clinton did raise taxes on rich people. He raised taxes on corporations, and he cut taxes for the poor and the middle class. That tax increase on rich people was only 2%. 2%. That's it. That was all. Not 15, 20, 40%, but 2%. And it generated billions of dollars. In fact, hundreds of billions. And it led to the economic boom of the 1990s. He cut taxes on poor people, cut them on middle class people, but not as much as poor people because they needed the money more. When you're poor, you spend 100% of the money that you bring in just to survive. And he raised taxes on rich people, but only by 2%. The top marginal rate, I believe, is about 37.5%, I think. And I'm going from memory. I'm sure somebody will do a DuckDuckGo search and let me know. But I think it's about 37.4, 37.5. It should be at least 50. It should be 50 at a minimum. What it really should be is 74 or 91. Every dollar that you earn over 4 million should be taxed at 50 or 74 or 91%. Then you will see balance return to this economy. When we raise corporate taxes, it is good for the economy. It rebalances the economy. Then you don't have these massive stock buybacks. You don't have CEOs paying themselves tens of millions of dollars. When you tax corporate income at a high rate, you force corporations. It becomes, it makes more economic sense for them to reinvest the money back into the company where they don't have to pay any more money on it. If you reinvest the money, you don't pay taxes on it. It's the profits you pay taxes on. And that's how this country worked from the Republican New Deal forward until Reagan destroyed all of it. We had the most equitable, sustainably growing economy from the post-war, post-depression, I would even say before the war, post-depression era, right through to the early 70s. And very true. If you were a person of color or a woman, you simply did not enjoy the benefits of that the same way white men did. We're in a better place now as a society where I would like to believe that if a full New Deal style program was instituted again, or that those pre-Reagan tax rates were restored, that the benefits would disseminate through the society in a much more equitable way. I do remain optimistic about that. But we know what the answers are. High taxes on rich people and corporations balance out a society. They do not destroy manufacturing. Manufacturing in this country was not fleeing overseas when the corporate tax rate was 50%. We were the largest industrial power on the planet. And yet we had high corporate taxes. Rich people were not fleeing the country to go live other places. They were still here. Because that's where tariffs come in. Great. You don't want to pay a 50% corporate tax? Think it's going to be, you're not going to be able to make enough money and you're going to move all your manufacturing to China? Fine. I'll slap 150% tariff on you. Your products will be more expensive than your competition's products made here in the United States. That's how domestic industries are built. Raising these tax rates, restoring the tax order of things to a pre-Reagan status includes tariffs. We have to raise tariffs. Fine, Tesla, Elon Musk, you want to move your battery operation to China? Fine. You can import your batteries back into the United States, by the way, but I will tax them. I will put a tariff on them that will make them more expensive than a domestic supplier. So think twice. Or you can pay the taxes here. Your people can unionize, and they can actually afford to buy what you make. Henry Ford was no great champion of democracy. And he certainly wasn't sensitive to racial differences in a society. But he did tell us that if you make a product that your own people cannot afford, you won't be in business for too long. When he was asked why his cars were so cheap, he said that he wanted to make a product that his own people could afford because his employees were his consumers. Seems very basic, very common sense. 8:01 Eastern Daylight Time. If you have not reset your clocks, you might want to do it before tomorrow morning. 8:01 Eastern Daylight Time, daylight savings time has returned to the United States, and I hope the temperatures follow it. The weather looking for this week looks like it's going to start really feeling like spring. I hope it stays that way. We hope all of you out there are well and happy, that you and yours are healthy and happy. And we thank you all very, very, very much for being with us this evening. The Villain's View comes up in just an hour right after us. That Other Side of Information on Facebook, hot101.net. For right now, the final hour of the Kennedy Effect is underway, or at least as long as we can take you. I know that the Oscars have started, and we have seen a bit of a drop off, a little bit in listenership and engagement and so on, now that the Oscars have begun. We will try to take you as deep up to 9 o'clock as we can. The Villain's View comes your way then, wherever you are on Facebook. We've shared the program to about 100 and... Ooh, he's going to try and look quick. 115 places. Randall said he sent it to 10. So we're probably in the 130 range. We've sent the program out to about 130 places this week. If you are part of that sharing, we thank you so much. If you have allowed us to be part of your corner of the Facebook universe, thank you. We couldn't do it without you, especially the 5 new groups that we joined this past week, all surrounding internet radio. What a better place for us to be. And we thank them for allowing us to be part of their corner of the Facebook universe as well. If you're in any of those new groups, Ohio Internet Radio, Internet Promotion, I read them off earlier, I can't name them all right now, then thank you and welcome. And we hope that you're with us every single week that we are live. If you miss any of the live program, please go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/that other side of information. It's right there. You can watch us live there right now. And if you missed any of it, you can watch the recording there as well all the time. Every program that we've ever done is at our YouTube channel, That Other Side of Information. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. Any device on Earth that can connect above, on, or below Earth that can connect to the internet can listen to hot101.net. Our name is our address. Go to the apps, Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and the TuneIn Radio app. And of course, you can tell Alexa to play hot101.net, TCP Media Group, and the PayGive app, paygive.org. You have to, when you buy things, you have to pay for them. The live read note I wrote in my head, and I still don't always get it right. PayGive app, www.paygive.org. When you buy things, you have to pay for it. Why not give while you do it? Phone line is open at 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189, 227-227-9189. Someone in the chat asked for the number. It's always right on the screen. It's in my square. It's in George's square. It's right there. 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. Let me get to Senator Britt's quote unquote response to the State of the Union. She has taken a tremendous amount of abuse about the delivery, of the very odd delivery of her rebuttal. 267-273. Is this welcome to the program?
That is Carmina.
Hey, there she is.
Because I just wanted to. Huh?
You got to turn off the radio behind you. Just talk to me on the phone. The delay is going to make it impossible.
Hold on.
Just listen to me through the phone. There's way too much of a delay. Yep, just talk to me right through the phone.
Well, first of all, I wanted you to go on about your Senator Britt, and then I wanted to just go ahead. I'm listening.
All right. Well, look, Senator Britt has taken a lot of abuse for her very breathy, dramatic, Stepford wife type of delivery of her rebuttal. I want to kind of skip that part of it because I think that's the low-hanging fruit.
Oh.
I think that's the easy thing to beat her up about. I instead am going to decide to beat her up about something else.
Okay.
You lied through most of it.
Okay.
You lied. Senator Britt, by the way, was Senator Langford's chief deputy, if you will, in the writing and the construction of the border security bill. Then you came out, lied about it, and voted against it. You helped write it. You helped write it. You damn well knew what was in it because you wrote it. And you're a liar. To go into that rebuttal and say that the bill did not do this and the border's a problem and this and that, you wrote the bill. You helped write it. And then you voted against it after Donald Trump called you on the phone.
Exactly.
You're a liar. You're a liar and a fake. And oh, by the way, if you think women, she's mentioned in her rebuttal, I'm a senator and I'm involved in this and that and the other, and I advocate for this and that, but my favorite job is right here in my favorite room in the house, my kitchen, where I'm a wife and a mother. Good. Then get the hell out of the Senate. Then go the hell home. If you don't think women belong in the Senate and they belong in the kitchen, then go home and be an example. You want to be a leader? Resign and go home to your $200,000 kitchen and your $10,000 refrigerator that you spoke in front of. But you understand women's issues? Now, we can have a difference of opinion on the policies that surround women's issues, but you cannot lie about them. And you cannot proselytize of how the greatest duty of a woman is as a wife and mother. If it's so goddamn important to you, then go home and be a wife and mother. Except that you won't, because you're getting rich in the Senate. Because you're padding yourself on Coke money and right-wing money, fossil fuel money, evangelical money. When people talk about Mitch McConnell and his saying that he's going to resign his leadership position and that this will in all likelihood be his last term in the Senate, because if you really look at him, he's dying. He's becoming painfully thin. He's ill. It's not hard to see. What should piss you off about Mitch McConnell is not just the way he has packed all the courts or the pieces of legislation that he has stopped from becoming law or the ones that he has advocated for. It's the fact that he entered the House of Representatives as a middle-class, small-town country lawyer, and he will leave it as a billionaire. That's what should piss you off. We can have differences of opinion about policy and about policy solutions to the issues that face our country. But what should really piss you off is that he's going to be a billionaire by the time he leaves. So what should piss you off about Senator Britt? That she's breathy, that breathy, weird, whispery sort of delivery? No. I teach candidates how to speak in public. Sometimes you whisper for effect. Sometimes you have to know not just when to be loud, but when to be softer. So I don't have a problem with her delivery. It was a little disturbing, but I don't necessarily have a problem with her delivery. It's the lies that she told you in that speech. And if you want to be a wife and mother so bad, then get the hell out of the Senate. Go home and be a wife and mother. But you won't, because you're getting rich, just like the rest of them. So go ahead, Carmina.
Well, what I say about the Katie Britt thing, I think what's really scary to me is how she allowed herself to be influenced and bullied to listen to the men that coached her to do this as a survival method in the party. I mean, they clearly used her.
Right.
Kind of overdid it. But to me, what's scary is how everybody is folding because they're scared of Donald Trump and his influence. I mean, today you have Lindsey Graham sitting on TV saying that Mike Johnson is going to talk to Trump tomorrow about Ukraine, and that he talked to Trump about Israel. I mean, we are openly saying now that current legislators are dictating their policy positions and votes based on real live conversations that they're currently having with Donald Trump. That's scary to me.
Well, this is not, but this is not unusual. It is not unusual for congressional leaders to involve their party's presidential nominee in policy making and policy decisions. The scary part is the policies that we're talking about. The fact that Trump is more than willing to allow Russia to storm across Europe unchecked. That's the problem. The fact that he continues to lie about what's going on at the southern border, that more tax cuts would be coming,
right,
and that he'll pardon himself and everybody around him. It's not a part. If it was a Republican running for re-election for president right now, Democrats would be speaking to the presumptive nominee. They would be. We've done it before. We'll do it again. The fact that they are talking about policy is not the problem. It's the policies that they're talking about. And to be honest with you, it's really not the policies that they're advocating for. It's the fact that they are trying to stop everything. There are no policy alternatives right now coming out of the Trump party. None. It's all about what to stop, what to complain about. Not advocating for anything. They're just trying to stop everything so that President Biden doesn't get any more quote unquote victories. Remember Senator Langford during the State of the Union when Joe Biden was talking about the border security bill? Senator Langford shook his head and said, yes, everything he just said is true. Why would Senator Langford do such a thing? Because he wrote the bill. He knows exactly what's in it. And he knows that when Joe Biden stood in front of Congress and said, the bill does this, it hires this many people, it spends this much money, it's the largest one-time direct expenditure on border security in the history of the country. Langford knows he's telling the truth. And that's exactly why Senator Britt's response is so full of crap, because she knows what's in the bill too. But because Donald Trump pushed her, she lied about it. She lied about a piece of legislation she helped write. These people are not serious. They're not serious leaders and legislators. This is not a functioning political party anymore. Period. It's just a cult of Trump. These are not Republicans anymore. This party, if you will, it's only out of habit that I keep calling it a party. This group of people is no more analogous to a political party than Jim Jones was analogous to the Democratic Party in Guyana. They are cults. They're cults. The closest thing in history I could probably make an analogy to again would be Rome, when Rome was a democratic republic. Senators were elected to represent people, and then it became an autocracy. That's what's left of Republicans. It's Trump's party. He is the dictator. You have people in the House and Senate who literally do not speak until they run it past him first.
Yeah.
That's not leadership. That's not a political party. That's a dictatorship.
Absolutely.
Trump hosted Orban again. The 15-year dictator of Hungary, ally of Putin, was at Mar-a-Lago again this week. This is not a governing political party. It's not an American political party in the tradition of American political parties. Go ahead. What else you got?
Put his daughters or someone affiliated in his family with the DNC over his second term. I mean, it's just, we've normalized this bizarre existence of how he is just taking over the whole political system. It's just ridiculous. Listen, I have to go on to another radio show, but I wanted to go ahead. I'm sorry.
How dare you go to another radio show? I'm offended. I'm kidding. I'm just.
No. It's I'm part of this Black Women's Roundtable.
Go get them. Now I know why I wasn't invited to that. I would not fit in.
We're supporting Black female candidates across the country, and it's a think tank to be able to share what's happening in our respective communities. So that's a lot.
Well, go get them. Go get them. I am eternally grateful for you calling us again. 2 weeks on the trot.
The reason why I called is, first of all, I wish we could talk further, but I want to talk about Act 40. Are you familiar with that?
No, please.
Well,
Please tell me.
Because I don't have much time, but I would like to talk to you about Act 40 because it's basically Lagerholic from Cambria County, Senator Lagerholic, is trying to set up a system of policing over the DA's office in Philadelphia, like the crime stuff that we have going on here.
Okay.
And Josh ended up signing it. So the bill is passed, but our DA, Larry Krasner, is contesting it in court. But I want to talk about how here he is, a state legislator, a state senator from Cambria County, from Johnstown. He's trying to dibble into what we're dealing with on the East Coast, and he's got overrepresentation of incarceration right in Cambria County. And so the reason why I'm mentioning that is because I tagged you into a post today that with my statewide group, the We Can't Wait group, we're going to be initiating a statewide town hall every first day of the month. And so we're kicking it off on April 1st. We want to share it out to everybody. And I think, Jeff, what I'd like to do in the fall, I really would like to work with you and Jay and some other people to go to respective communities that have such disparate justices to have conversations with people. So please look at the tag that I tagged you in. I'd like to talk about it on your show at another time, and I'd like to talk about Act 40 at another time as well.
I will try to find that. It's somewhere deep down in the list, but I will try to find it.
40. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Have a great night. Have a great week. George, you had something that you wanted to ask about.
Yes. Who names their kid Ridgeway? That's all I want to know.
What do you mean?
Please don't ever name your kids Ridgeway, or Bennett.
Oh, well, it's very approachable, right? It sounds like private school, doesn't it?
Sounds like a rich private school.
Extremely
rich, yeah.
I would say I obviously need to do my homework on this, on Act 40. George was kind enough to put a link in the show chat that he and I do. We communicate during the show things that you don't always need to know about out there in the world about, if we're technical things or this isn't sounding right or something like that. We don't have to always bore you all with those kind of details. So I'm going to have to do a little research on this and do a little reading on it. On the surface, I would say, however, Republicans in Pennsylvania have done a very good job. And again, they have followed Trump's lead on this. And they've done a very good job of making a scapegoat, making a political boogeyman, if you will, out of the city of Philadelphia. They have treated Philadelphia as if it has somehow an appendage, an extra appendage of Pennsylvania, and not actually really part of Pennsylvania. There are very few majority Black cities left in the North, the traditional North, the colonial, post-revolutionary North of the United States. Detroit is one of them. Philadelphia is another. And for that reason, Philadelphia has become a target, a scapegoat, a boogeyman, something to be feared and ridiculed and constantly attacked by politicians inside Pennsylvania and ones from DC who just need something else to talk about other than the monumental amount of nothing that they themselves are accomplishing. I happen to know D.A. Krasner a little bit. I'm not here to tell you that we have lots of dinners together and exchange Christmas cards and things like that, but I know him a little bit. He is a very, very big hero of the progressive left. He is easily one of the most progressive DAs in the country, not just in the state, but in the country, and not just even in the region. And there is a sizable gun violence problem in Philadelphia. I'm not 100% sure he's done enough. And he has a very poor relationship with the police department because he has legitimately gone after them for corruption, for some of the ways they've conducted themselves. He hasn't really built a bridge with them. He's built walls with them. And they've done the same thing in reverse. I think it's something that both parties have, both sides of that issue have, of that relationship, I should say, have fault in. But this idea, well, Larry Krasner's a progressive. It's a majority Black city. Philly's a pretty good scapegoat for things. So now you have these middle-aged white male legislators from around Pennsylvania trying to take on powers and responsibilities unto themselves that are not theirs. Larry Krasner is the two-time fairly, openly, legally, clean election elected district attorney of the city of Philadelphia. Twice. A lone middle-aged white male legislator from Cambria County has no business, and I don't think any constitutional or legal authority, to try to define the powers of the Philadelphia district attorney. That is a city matter. If Mayor Sherrell Parker and the council of Philadelphia doesn't like how the DA is conducting himself, then the city has to handle that. Angry white male Republican legislators from throughout Pennsylvania have no jurisdiction over Mr. Krasner, period. They might think that they do. I can't think of a single constitutional argument, state constitutional argument, under which that they do. So all this appears to be, to me, on the surface, and again, I've got homework and reading to do. I could very well come back to you next week with a completely different opinion. I have not read enough on this yet, but just looking at what George sent, this is simply a further attempt by these legislators from these rural areas in PA who are not benefiting from all the good that's coming out of the national government, with their own rural areas suffering, to distract and delay from their own failures at home. That would be my initial on the surface idea of it. 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. Just a little over half hour left if we can make it that far. I have made it so far that I haven't had a rush from my inhaler. I thought there was a little window there in the middle where I thought if I don't get my inhaler right now, I'm going to pass out. But we made it. I think we're past that crisis. I am taking in way too much liquid. I'll tell you what, right at 9 o'clock, if I make it to 9 o'clock, I'm going to make a beeline for that little boy's room. I can tell you that straight away. I took in way too much fluid and I'm so thirsty. I can't stand it. All I want to do is continue to drink. And I just like bodily should not be doing that. I'm not going to make it to the end of the show. Randall, my friend, as promised. Holy shit. By the way, when's the last time 3 people called us in the same show, George? That's been a bloody long time for that, isn't it? So
first time what happened?
Well, I don't think it's a first, but it's been a damn long time. I guarantee you. I think actually one show we had 5 calls.
In a year.
That's how it should be. It should be. We should have more callers than we have time for you all. It's your show. It's not a lecture series. I'm not here. 3 years ago, George tells me. Yeah, it was. We had 5 callers once. I knew it was a while back. It's not a lecture series. I'm not here to tell you all what to think. We're supposed to be talking to each other. It's one of the great blessed, and I mean blessed, things about Randall and his friendship. He's not afraid to call. Randall shows you all every single week. It doesn't hurt a damn bit to call us. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't hurt. No blood on the floor. No bruised egos. It's just a discussion. That's all it is. You call, millions of people call sports radio every week and talk about the same damn thing. It's one of the great things I admire about Tom Hartman. He's got more callers than he has time in his show. At the end of his show, every single day, people are left waiting on hold. I wouldn't mind being the same way. So anyway, Randall, welcome. I hope you are well. Floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting something which I'm not happy about. Respiratory. I went to see my oldest grandson, 10-year-old, Friday night here in Delaware County. They had a elementary school chorus of all 15 public school districts here in Delaware County combined. And each elementary school, no matter where in this 15 districts, to produce 4 people from their school to be in this all-county elementary course. And yeah, I'm very proud. My oldest grandson was picked from his school. And it was wonderful. Hour and a half up at Radnor High School auditorium. All these socioeconomic differences in Delaware County here, all represented together. Singing an African song, singing a Korean song. It was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful.
As it should be. As it should be.
But I think I've got something among all those hundreds and hundreds of people.
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of always been that way, hasn't it? I mean, going back years and decades, it's kind of always been that way, that when you go to something like that, the more people you're around, the more chance are that you're going to pick something up. Kids are always picking things up at school. It just is, because they're surrounded by so many other people. But I think definitely in a post-pandemic world, and especially, flu, RSV, it just kind of seems like if you're anywhere where there's more than a dozen people, you got a real chance you're going to come out of there with something. It does seem to be a little more intense. Maybe we're just paying more attention to it in a post-pandemic world. But I can remember a kid, as a kid, my mom telling me, if we're going to this thing and there's hundreds of people there, there's just a much better chance of picking something up. So I kind of think it's always been that way a little bit, but it does seem like in a post-pandemic world, it's a little more of a thing. Now, if you're in a room
No.
with 20 or 30 people, it seems like you're going to pick something up instead of 100 or 150, but whatever, you know what I mean?
I haven't been to anything even remotely that many people since before the pandemic began. So that's that's a side issue. Anyway, uh, lot of good information you gave out and your guest gave out tonight that did have the audacity to call in, and I just think that when you like the when you were talking earlier about Reagan making the devil's pact with the Republican white evangelistic church on the issue of abortion.
Yep.
Excuse me. Um,
Literally creating a political issue out of whole cloth. Yeah.
You might have seen it in my comments. The interest, evangelist preacher Billy Graham,
Mhm.
my mother absolutely loved. His son is a rabid anti-abortion.
Yep.
Billy Graham came out just a few years before he died and said he, was for women's rights. He wasn't necessarily anti-abortion. The Protestant churches in America were not anti-abortion until
Reagan.
fair. Oh, okay. my frogs are right tonight. Until Jerry Falwell started his movement within the Republican Party to gain all these white evangelistic Christians to the Republican Party. And
this is exactly the story that Joe Scarborough was telling this week.
Not against abortion. And he's considered one of the greatest evangelistic preachers of the 20th century.
He's a businessman. But this is exactly the story that Joe Scarborough was telling this week. That Jimmy Carter, as we all know, he's a man who's going to be remembered much more fondly after his presidency than during it, and has been, by the way, remembered way more fondly following his presidency than he was during it. Is a very devout Southern Baptist. There were still Sundays during his presidency where he would return to Georgia and teach Sunday school.
Yep.
And the Republicans and the Reagan campaign needed to pull. They wanted to break that part of his persona. They wanted to break that vision. They needed a wedge issue to wedge him away from to wedge Carter away from the church. They needed something to bring in between the two of those. And they created this political issue around the idea of abortion and women's reproductive rights and health. Randall is 100% correct. The Southern Baptist Church and nearly all Protestant denominations throughout the country at that time were pro-choice. It was the big TV for-profit preachers, Falwells, Robertsons, and on and on. There were the one with the last name. It's not McGagey. There's another one, but
the one in Charlotte, North Carolina. I can't remember the name.
There were more of them as we moved through. Remember now, there were more of them as we moved through the 80s because they realized what a profitable business it was. Just like right-wing hate radio hosts. If you say enough of this shit, you can make a hell of a lot of money doing it. Whether you believe it or not is irrelevant. These TV preachers became the same thing in the late 70s, 80s through the Reagan era. And it was Reagan that began to break down the walls of church and state. And they made this issue. They literally created this issue from nothingness and made it a Republican issue. And they drove that wedge between Democrats, not just President Carter, but between Democrats and the church. It led to the modern idea, which is a false, fake lie of an idea, that somehow Democrats are not people of faith. I am a person of faith, and I am as proud a New Deal Kennedy and progressive Democrat as you're going to find. And my faith is still inside. In fact, my faith continues to grow. It continues to be restored from earlier times in my life when I strayed away from the church. And we can be both things. We can be political creatures, and we can be creatures of faith. The former party known as the Republicans, do not own faith. And they do not own patriotism. I heard a great line this week. Governor Wes Moore, the first-term governor of Maryland, was on with Morning Joe this week. He's one of the national co-chairs of the Biden campaign. There's always these sort of honorary co-chairs. He may actually be doing campaign work. I have no idea, but there's always sort of these national figures that are made co-chairs of these presidential campaigns. Wes Moore is one of them. He is a man of color. He is a veteran, a very decorated veteran, by the way, of the Second Iraq War, the post-terrorist attack wars. He was a very regular guest on Morning Joe for a while before he branched deeper into politics. And by his own, if I'm recalling correctly, by his own judgment, I shouldn't stay on TV if I'm going to be a politician. I should be running, if we do one or the other. He was elected governor of Maryland overwhelmingly. It was like by 20 points, or might even been worse. It might even be 30. But he mentioned this morning, leading up to the State of the Union, how they were having a discussion about Trump saying in one of these interviews that America sucks. He literally just said straight out, America sucks. And Governor Moore was trying to make the point, how is that really patriotic? How can Republicans claim to own patriotism when the head of their former political party, the head of the cult, says America sucks? Now, Governor Moore also made the point that I make on this program all the time. It's the pursuit of a more perfect union. It is patriotic to complain and to want to seek better things for your country. But to just flat out say the country sucks, how can you want to run for the most powerful office in the land when you hate the country of the most powerful office in the land? There's a pundit on MSNBC earlier last week. I wish to God I could remember who it was. I am desperately apologetic that I cannot remember who said it. How can you say you love your country when you hate half the people in it? And that's what this has turned into. The Republican Trump cult, we hate women, we hate people of color, we hate immigrants, we hate poor people. Unless they're dumb enough to vote for us, then they're kind of okay. We hate people who are sick. We hate people who don't have wealth, or at least don't have enough wealth that we can steal it from them. We hate Democrats. We hate Greens. We hate progressives. We hate liberals. How can you say we hate unions? You are right. Very well said. How can you say you love this country when you hate damn near everyone in it. That's not patriotism. Seeking a more perfect union and just flat out hating everything is different. So go ahead, couple more minutes, because there's a story I want to get to before we end.
I know I couldn't call in until after 8 o'clock and then
Stop.
get to bed. But anyway, yeah, you know, I'm a Presbyterian Protestant, a liberal progressive Presbyterian Protestant, and I went to a college down south, out in the Blue Ridge Mountains outside of Ashburn, North Carolina, in 1970, and here's the student body composed of black and white Americans. Here's the student body composed of students from 37 countries in the world, most of them third world. And yeah, I went to this little small college, this little mini United Nations, and it totally changed my life. And it has to this day. And you've had people that I've, suggested you in past years that like Kevin Frederick, the minister that graduated from Warren Wilson College. And I can't even explain how much it changed me to be exposed to liberals, to be exposed to conservatives, to be exposed to middle of the road Americans. And yeah, we didn't fight each other. Did we have honest to God policy discussion? Absolutely. And that's what we lost in America. You're absolutely right. The Trump party hates half of America. And that's just BS, in my opinion.
Real quick, if you wouldn't mind. Did you watch the State of the Union this week? Did you watch the rebuttal? What did you think of each?
Well, I watched the State of the Union live, and I watched the whole thing later, and I watched the rebuttal. And as far as I'm concerned, that Alabama senator, she is a white nationalist, evangelistic Trumpite. And if she had her way, she would turn this whole country into Margaret Atwood's book, The Handmaid's Tale. She would do away with votes by women. She would put all the women back in the kitchen. And the list, it's infallible. And by the way, I have a first edition, first printing, hard book that I bought at the time. I think it was 81 when Margaret Atwood released The Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, that's worth something now, actually. In all honesty, it really is. What's really worth it with the overwhelming popularity of the TV adaptation. That's the first edition. Like that's worth a lot. It's a real.
It's not going away from my family.
No, it should. No, I mean it's a real something to hand down now.
Yeah,
you hand that one down to the grandkids.
Mitchell, who spent years researching. He wrote Alaska. He wrote Texas. He wrote the Chesapeake Bay. What's that author's name?
You got
anyway. I've got a hard copy that there's a whole page he wrote, the author, to me on Alaska, on this book Alaska. So yeah, I got a few things.
Well,
All right,
I got
listen,
one last
you got-
story I want to get
yo-
to, and I'm so grateful that you called as always and that you continue to listen. And that cough bothers me. Please take care of yourself this week.
Yeah, I know. I gotta go see. The quick doc. But anyway, yeah, you got about 14 minutes for the village view. So pass it on at 9, please.
You
Love
got
you.
it, my friend.
See you next week. God bless.
You got it. Thank you. Randall the man, every week. He is as steady as a rock. I'm so immensely grateful for it. Really, really grateful for it. There's one last story I want to get to. And Franz was kind enough to listen in as well. Another gentleman who's taught me a lot and whose friendship means everything to me. But we disagree mightily on this topic. And to get the sense, this is an article I sent to him earlier last week. I think I sent it maybe Thursday or Friday. I was alerted to this by Tom Hartman. I missed this in the news. It's not, it's not a good thing that this went unnoticed in the news by American media predominantly, even though I happen to find the story from Reuters. So I want to make sure that I credit everybody. The article is written by Andrew Osborne. It was written on March 4th and posted on their website just before 11 a.m. Eastern time. So it's already 6 days old. But when I heard Tom Hartman talk about this, I thought to myself, why did I not know this? Why did I not hear about this? And why is this not a bigger story? Especially given the debate going on in Congress about aid for Ukraine and how Republicans, the Trump party, they've become the anti-democracy party. Let's just be blunt. They've become the anti-democracy party. They've become the anti-freedom party. A lot of things you can say about Reagan. It all started with Reagan. He was a virulent anti-communist. He was a capitalist. He was a virulent anti-communist and wanted the Soviet Union defeated. He wanted to win and end the Cold War. This modern Trump Republican Party, not so much. Not so much. Every Republican since Reagan and many before it talked about exporting democracy from the US. This current Trump Republican cult, not so much. One of the great failures of the Trump Republican cult has been the media, the fourth estate. I don't think, there's an entire media infrastructure that is complicit in the growth and proliferation and prophelization of the Trump Republican cult. But there's a good section of media who's just as virulently against it, but still just isn't getting the job done. And this story was one of them. I should not have had to dig for this story. So not only did I have to DuckDuckGo search it, I had to sift through a bunch of versions of this story to find one that even made sense. Some of the articles are just so poorly written. So I settled on a Reuters article. And this is a bit of a did you know? Did you know that last week the Russians released a new map of their country? The prime minister, although in the article he's listed as the head of the Security Council, he may be that as well. In the last 28 years, I think it is, or 30 years, only one other person has been the president of Russia other than Vladimir Putin, and that was Dmitry Medvedev. And that was only for, I believe, 4 years. One term, whatever a Russian presidential term is. I think it's 4 years, but I might be wrong. It might be 5, actually. So since Boris Yeltsin, only two people have ever been president of Russia. Putin, and for one lone term, Medvedev, because Putin changed the constitution so he could just stay president. And even when Medvedev was president, Putin became prime minister. So he never was really terribly far away from the steering wheel. He was still driving the car. Let me get to this anyway, before it gets too late. It's already 52. So this is March 4th. Again, the article's author is Andrew Osborne. It's Reuters news service from March 4th. Dmitry Medvedev, deputy chairman. I just made a word. Where did that come from? It must be getting late. Deputy chairman of Russia's Security Council and ally of President Vladimir Putin, to say the least, described Ukraine on Monday as a part of Russia and said what he called historical parts of Russia needed to, quote unquote, come home. He's referring to the Soviet Union. The borders of the Soviet Union were not the borders of Russia. Many of us in the Soviet Union era made the mistake of making interchangeable terms between Russia and the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was a conglomeration of states, if you will, inside one border. That's why when the Soviet Union broke apart, these nation states regained their independence. The Baltic states, Ukraine, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Belarus, they were all part of the Soviet Union proper, not the Eastern Bloc. Remember, Poland was still a country. Czechoslovakia was still a country. Hungary was still a country. Romania. They were all part of the Eastern Bloc, the Soviet influence. The Soviet Union itself was a bit of a confederation of states, if you will, under one central Soviet government, the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. And let's remember, the only people who economically did well in the Soviet Union were the party members. They got rich. Stalin got rich while his people starved. I return to the article. In a bellicose presentation that suggested Russia's military goals in Ukraine are far-reaching, Medvedev, who was Russia's president from 2008 to 2012, there you go, 4 years, praised the Russian Empire and the Soviet Union and said Moscow would prosecute its, quote-unquote, special military operation until the Ukraine leadership capitulated. In other words, total surrender. They will flatten and kill everything they can in Ukraine until they surrender. There will be no peace. Quote, one of Ukraine's former leaders said at some point that Ukraine is not Russia. Medvedev, a hawk who diplomats say gives a flavor of thinking inside the Kremlin, told a youth forum in the Black Sea city of Sochi, that concept needs to disappear forever. Ukraine is definitely Russia, he said to applause. Historic parts of the country need to come home. Medvedev was speaking in front of a giant map of Ukraine, showing the country as a much smaller, landlocked lump of land than its internationally recognized territory. The map appeared to depict a scenario where Ukraine would be squeezed up against Poland, with Kyiv remaining its capital, but Russia would be in control of a swath of Ukrainian cities and in its east, south, and entire Black Sea coastline. So even in this new map, whatever remains of Ukraine would be under control of the Russian Empire. He ruled out peace talks. And this map also contained these new Russian empiric borders that took parts of Poland and the Baltic states. If there was ever any doubt, the Trump Republicans would tell you that we have no interests in defending Ukraine, that Russia does not want to storm across Western Europe. This map tells you different. At first, when this theory emerged that Putin wanted to restore the original, I guess, if you will, Russian Empire / Soviet Union, even some Russia experts in this country said, we don't believe that to be true. They now admit they were wrong. He just told you exactly what they want to do. They want the old Tsarist / Soviet borders restored. This is a war of conquest. And we must help the Ukrainians. They are willing to fight. They are only asking us for the means with which to do so. Sweden completed its joining NATO this week after years of post-World War II neutrality, because they know what's coming and they want to be prepared as best they can to stop it, hopefully before it starts. The only way to stop it before it starts is to help the Ukrainians defend their sovereign nation. I also told you last week, too, that I think this is going to end up with some compromise. They're going to end up giving up land. But I don't think we're going to get Medvedev's map either. George, anything quick you want to throw in the last minute?
No, because I'm going to start coughing
Oh,
in about a minute. So
fantastic. Like, saved all his coughs until after we go off the air. That's
Thanks.
production at its finest. The
That's
Villain's
courtesy.
View comes up immediately following us in less than 60 seconds. So let me just say that it is our plan to be back with you next week. That would be the 17th, St. Patrick's Day. My goodness, I'm going to be back with you on St. Patrick's Day. It seems to me there would be nothing more appropriate than to have a Kennedy on your radio on a St. Patrick's Day. That's the plan. We'll be back with you next week, 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for everybody at TCP. Whitney, Marquise, Andrew, Taekwon, for everyone at hot101.net, DJ Earl, DJ Lex, the big boss, and all of the super talented DJs at hot101.net for George and Lynn Dare. George hanging on, bravely trying not to cough until after 9 o'clock. For France, for, of course, Lehigh County Commissioner and the woman responsible for our program, April Riddick, for Kristen, Daisy the dog, and Guy the cat downstairs. I'm Jeff Kennedy. We've done all we can do for 1 week. The Villain's View starts right now. We will see you next week.